What's up, everybody? I'm former quarterback Malik Rosier, and if football, sports interviews, and having a good time interests you, then make sure to click the like and subscribe button, as it really does help support this channel, and it also makes sure that you guys never miss a new video. How is everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Malik Rosier Show. And we're going to go ahead and get right into it. And the first section that we're going to start off with is kind of the college questions and college news. So I don't know if you guys saw, but yesterday there was a lot of commotion going on with the SEC potentially moving to an 8-game season. I know right now they have a 9, but moving to an 8-game season, I think it's really going to be beneficial. When you talk about adding Oklahoma and Texas already to the SEC, potentially add, maybe a Florida State, Clemson, Miami, or North Carolina as well. I don't know if we'll go to the Big Ten or the SEC, but I think there's a lot of stuff between player safety, player impact. I don't think you guys understand how violent this game is. Like, there are some hits where you can literally feel the vibrations through the stadium. So I really like this, especially when you talk about how big and deep the trenches are inside the SEC. These guys need a chance to rest. These guys need a chance to heal, especially when you look at the bottom point. We're trying to move to 2024 into a 12-game playoff, and you're going to have at least 2 to 3 teams out of the SEC every year that make it to the playoffs. And the biggest thing, at least for the SEC in my mind, would be, have these guys healthy, making sure they're playing strong and fast. I know from the Miami fans, we've dealt with injury. Last year, we had so many offensive linemen go down. When I was a quarterback, I had Amon Richards, I had Mark Walton, I had Braxton Berrios banged up, Chris Herndon went down, some offensive linemen went down, half the defense was injured. And a lot of times, you want to see a lot of the games, but to me, it's about having really good strength of schedule and saying, hey, we're going to play 8 opponents in our conference. We're going to play, 1 or 2 that are out of conference, and we're going to play, 1 that's like an HBCU or maybe a smaller D1 school. So I really think that they should move to an 8 schedule. I know some people are going to be upset about it, especially to me on the smaller side, maybe a Vanderbilt or Missouri, a team that regularly isn't in, the contender spot for the SEC. But I think when you're talking about the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Texas A&Ms, the Oklahomas, all these teams are about to transfer over, having one less game not playing, an Arkansas or a, Texas A&M for 1 game is going to be really, really helpful, because you're going to have kids that, now decrease the chance of being injured. So I would say personally, I'm a fan of the 8-game schedule, especially when you're talking about a 12-game playoff or a 12-team playoff. I'm a fan of the 8-game schedule, especially when you're talking about a 12-team playoff. So it's very interesting to see what they do. I think a lot of it's going to have to reside on Nick and Kirby. I think those 2 kind of guys kind of lead and have a big voice, but also know there's a little bit of ESPN pull, because they have their certain amount of games that they want to get covered and played and things like that. Or I think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic that we're going to have to see progress out. So next, this was something that Saban got asked is, do you think there should be an injury report like the NFL? And honestly, yes. I think when you're talking about NIL with these kids getting paid with name, image, and likeness, I think when you're talking about the amount of sports gambling that's going into it, you can't even watch a game now without a FanDuel or some sports bookie coming up and saying, oh, you guys pay $100 and get $250 free in bets. Okay, cool. But then you're also asking us to bet, but then not understand who's playing or not during that bet. So I definitely think that there should be certain injuries. I don't think there should be very minor injuries that get told, but if a guy's out for the week, we should know who's out. We shouldn't have to guess and hope that let me put my parlay in on Friday when, ESPN's promoting the sports betting, but then we have no idea who's hurt or things like that. And, I'm all about player safety. I'm all about, player privacy. But when you're talking about ESPN promoting betting, you're going to have certain schools that's probably going to do deals the next couple of years with some of these, bigger casinos and things like that I could personally see. And then I think also when you're talking about, these kids getting paid now, they're getting paid like professionals. So I also think that there has to be some type of professionalism that is being handled in that aspect. Next, and this was another one that was interesting. I'm going to kind of go into a tangent about this one, but is a portal open for too long? I would say yes and no. I would say I like the first section, right after the season, you're able to portal. What I don't like is the spring one. I think once you transfer once, you kind of should stick it out. I think that we're giving these kids a little bit too much leeway and loopholes. And to me, I think the biggest thing that football is slowly going to miss is the integrity is I think the part of football that is really going to get missed if we don't nip this in the bud is the integrity, the loyalty to a program, the ability to, trust in a coach and say, hey, coach, I know where I want to be. I know I'm not there yet, but I'm gonna get better. A lot of these kids, if they don't like the situation and they hit the portal, they see who's gonna sweet talk them and they bounce and they go somewhere else and they hope that that coach can fix them. And there was probably some players that would have done that when I was playing, but fortunately, we didn't have that option. I didn't have that option. So I do like the fact that these players are getting paid. I like the fact these players are able to hit the portal and able to transfer, because there definitely are kids that are in bad situations that need that fresh new start. And we're going to kind of talk about a couple guys that I think are going to have that. But also, I don't like how just open it is and free it is, and how anyone can just be like, oh, I transferred here, during the spring. I don't like it now. I'm bouncing and going to somewhere else. Like, I don't think that should be a thing, because it's too hard on coaches. You're going to have coaches that have no loyalties to these players, because there's no reason why the players should have loyalty to the coaches. So I think, retention is going to be something that's going to be very, very hard, especially when you're talking about 18, 19, 20-year-old kids that, think that they're the world, or, think that they should be starting or playing and they're not. And now you give them a free pass to just bounce and slide and go somewhere else. Like, most kids are going to take that, because it's a very much a me game, a me thing. So I am super interested to see what happens. I definitely think this is a law that needs to be definitely looked more into and change. It was something that Kirby Smart talked about, talking about having to re-recruit your classes. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I got you here. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on you for recruiting. You picked me over every college. Now, and I will say there are certain, coaches that lie to kids. I think that's a different story. But some of these kids are just mad because they're not playing, or they're sitting behind somebody. So that aspect of this portal free agency BS to me is just outrageous. I also think these kids need to understand what a college education is. I think these kids need to understand how lucky and blessed they are, and what percentage of just the world that get to actually have the opportunity to play at a D1, high D1 collegiate level. Especially schools like Georgia, Alabama, Miami, Florida State, schools like that. So I think a lot of times these kids take it for granted. And, there's going to be a huge, huge portion of kids that hit that portal that do not have a home. And I think that's the part that a lot of people do not talk about. We talk about the guys that hit the portal and get these 6, 7 figure contracts. We don't talk about the kids that are right in the lukewarm, the middle part, that, have some talent, but don't have a lot of interest, that hit the portal hoping, and they never get picked up. They're back at home with mom and dad. So I do think that the NCAA needs to regulate this more, because to me, I think this is just a wild, wild west. And they're hoping that, they figure it out, as some of these kids are going to suffer throughout it. The last one, we kind of talked about it, 12-team playoff. I think that college football should have been had this. I hate it when it was only 2 teams. A lot of bias, especially when you're talking about the SEC and the Big Ten. I think now with this, I think this could shift slowly, into 4 main powers. I see the ACC, the SEC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12. I do not know what's going to happen to the Big 12. I think that maybe they start molding into the pack, and because the pack is losing USC and UCLA, so maybe, and the Big 12 is losing USC and Oklahoma, so maybe as like some of the bigger teams move out of those conferences, those 2 conferences merge, then you have 4. You take 3 from each conference, you take the top 2, and then you take the team that either has the most votes by the committee or commission, or you take the team that has the best win-loss record. So I think that's how it should be. It should be 4 big conferences, 3 from each. I really do love is the ability for round 1 for the colleges to actually host this, because people don't understand, like, most of these college kids, they're there for all the home games, especially, the mediocre ones or even the real big ones. But if you get a chance to experience a playoff game at home, like, that to me would be phenomenal. Most of the time, you got to pay for flight, you got to pay for hotel, you got to pay for tickets, you pay for food. It's a 2, 3, depending on what type of ticket you get, $4,000, $5,000 expense just for a weekend to go watch your football team. And now you're going to give 18, 19-year-old kids, especially when you're talking about the Alabama, the Georgias, the Florida States, Miamis, things like that, the Ohio States. Like, these kids consecutively are going to be able to see home playoff games versus Penn States and Michigans and UCLA and USC and Oregon. I think that's going to be a very, very unique part of the 12-team playoff if they can keep it there. A lot of people are nervous about money, and I think that would, to me, would be utterly BS by ESPN to take the experience, at least for one game. You guys can't wait 1 week and get to the third or fourth round. Or really the second, third, and fourth round to have like your bowl game and your sponsors. To me, I think this is really, really big for the schools, because not only does it allow the players to get the NIL, it also allows corporations that are investing into the schools that have their banners around, that have, their things flying. Now they get extra incentive. They get extra a boost of marketing and branding that, in the past, it would have only been to the SEC country, it would have only been to, the conference that you play. But now when you're talking about, hey, it's a 12-team playoff, you have Oregon coming out to Georgia, whatever conferences have that, or whatever brands have, their stuff around, especially their national brand. Now they're touching people in the West Coast. And to me, I think that's really, really big, especially when you're talking about, how these conferences incentivize university. I know the ACC is really working on that, to incentivize, winning. I think one thing too that they should really, really hope for, really push for is keeping the playoffs, or at least round one, at the university, and say, hey man, what we're gonna do is, as you guys win, we're gonna help you guys with sponsors, we're gonna help you guys with et cetera. And I think that's one thing that is very, very overlooked. Sponsorship money is really big, especially talking about major brands, major corporations. And I think that over time, round one at a college will really, really help, boost recruiting, because a lot of recruiting money will be able to go into that. A lot of sponsorship money. Now you get newer stuff, new facilities. So I think round one at the colleges would be a huge, huge bonus. And I really hope, for financial reasons, that, ESPN or like the ACC or the SEC doesn't, kick it to the curb because they want to add, an extra $1 million to their pockets, instead of, letting that money go to the school and to the players and et cetera. So we would take a quick break to thank our sponsors, DGen Sports. DGen Sports is an exciting NFT project that combines real-world sports and NFT culture. Behind an experienced leadership team, the project just launched their third season and offers free-to-play sports prediction prizes every month. They gave away a $250 NFT for the Masters alone. Follow them on Twitter at DGenSportsIO. So next, we're going to go into 3 qualities that I look for in a quarterback. To me, these are really, really big. And I'll say this: a lot of quarterbacks that I've ran into focus on the last part, and we'll get into that last. But it's pretty obvious. But the ability to process what you see, to me, this is big, because if I'm a coach, right, and I'm saying, hey, like, what'd you see? Why'd you make that mistake? Why'd you go to that check? If you're telling me, oh, coach, I saw cover one, safeties were on different levels, and I saw that boundary safety come down, and in reality, they were in cover two, split safety, and you threw the ball instead of running because you thought it was cover one. The whole play's dead. So if you can't process what you see, which is the key word, accurately, if you're just out there looking at stuff and don't understand what you see, like, to me, you're not a quarterback. To me, I think the number one thing about a quarterback is being able to process accurately what they see and be able to spit it back out to their coach, saying, hey, coach, this is what they're giving me. This is the adjustments that we need to make. But if you can't tell me what you actually see, then, like, I really can't help you as a coach. And yes, I can tell you, hey man, it's cover two. Like, you're thinking it's cover one, but it's cover two. But even when you go back out there, if you can't process what's going on, it's going to hurt us. So number one is the ability to understand defenses, leverages, things like that. Like the non-throwing stuff, to me, is the number one part of a quarterback. I think a lot of kids really make mistakes on. So again, number one for me is the ability to process information obviously the higher the speed, the better. But to me, if you are a little slower, I don't really care, as long as you're accurate, as long as you have time to process everything in the right way. That's why they give you a shot clock. It's not like they give you a 10-second shot clock. As long as the play comes in fast, you should have 10, 12, even sometimes 15 seconds to say, hey, where's the leverage? Where are the safeties? What's the front? Start going through that in your mind. And that, to me, is a first step of at least being a quarterback. The second part, and this is huge to me too, clean footwork. A lot of people watch Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, and to me, they can kind of get away with bad footwork just because, one, they're pros. But second, when you have guys running 4.2s and 4.3s all over the field, like, the windows get so much tighter that you can't go with 3-step to a curl. You might have to left-right hitch ball just because this guy is going to cover ground really, really fast. So to me, it's clean footwork. If I say, hey, I want a 2-step drop on quick game, go left, right ball. If I say I want a 3-step, go 1, 2, 3 ball, 3 and a hitch, 1, 2, 3 hitch ball. To me, I think there's a lot of stuff that, kids try to, make up with arm strength or arm talent. And really, to be honest with you, if you clean your footwork up, it would actually help your arm strength and arm talent, because now you could actually use your entire body. A lot of kids want to have bad feet to look like real quick and pretty and throw, all sidearm and stuff. And to me, the problem is, yeah, it looks cool, but when there's a 6'5" offensive lineman in front of you and he has a 6'4" defensive lineman pushing him, and when I was in college, there was guys that were 6'7", 6'8". It's like, you're not going to be able to have bad footwork throwing sidearm and expect to throw an accurate ball. And 7-on-7 routes on air, it works. But in real football, that doesn't work. And there's very few people, like I would say, the Patrick Mahomes and Rodgers, that can really get away with that. But for a lot of, the young guys, clean footwork, understanding where your base and your balance is, when you do a left, right, or a three step or through the hitch, when you get to the top, you should be in really, really good base and good balance. Your feet should be towards your target. Or really your back ankles should be towards your target in the pocket. So that's a lot of stuff that I look for. Number two as a quarterback is, where is his feet? How does he do his drops? In quick game, is he a hot three? Is he a left right? Is he more of a rhythm thrower? Those things are really, really big to me. The last one, and now we're finally getting into some throwing. And to me, it's not power. To me, obviously, I think you need an accurate quarterback, and that's stuff that I can teach. But one is the ability to throw with touch. This is a lot of stuff that I teach a lot of my young kids, man. If you have a struggling running back or struggling tight end, maybe your tight end is more of a blocker, but he's wide open. Don't throw him a dart that's going to knock him over. Throw him a nice, clean, catchable ball, something that obviously has good pace to it, but that isn't going to knock him down or make it really hard to catch. Something that I really had to learn. Um, the guy that actually used to yell at me a lot was Rayshawn Scott. I would literally throw a slant, and it would just be a miss. Like, I would throw it as hard as I could because I thought that I had to show off arm strength. And over time, I realized that it's better for me to throw a catchable ball that maybe I throw it a little early, but the pace of the ball is a little slower, so that it's easier to receive. A lot of times, I would wait until he broke to see it, and then I would try to drive it in there as hard as I could to fit into a window. And to me, it was about, speeding up my thought process so I can understand where the window was, having clean feet so that my feet was on time to get to that window, and then having touch or the ability to throw on off platform. Kind of what the second point is, maybe there's a maybe there's an offensive lineman that's getting bull rushed into me. I'm having to back up or move a little bit. Throwing off platform to me is really, really big as much as touch, because you're not going to have a perfect pocket every time. If you do have it, great, but most of the time they're usually going to be a mismatch somewhere on your offensive line with the defensive lineman, or maybe they bring a blitz. And so the ability to only throw with touch, because if you can throw with touch, you can throw it early. So if you do get rushed, because you're throwing with a touch ball, you can put it in a place where he's going to be and give him time to catch up to your football. Or, maybe you get in bull rush and you're able to, be backpedaling and all of a sudden turn your body and throw. To me, I think both of those are good. To me, obviously, all platform comes after touch. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of stuff that, at least for young quarterbacks, man, focus on the pre-throwing stuff. What is the coverage? Where are my linebackers? Are my safeties uneven? What is the front? Are they an under, over, odd? If you guys don't know that, you guys need to know under, over, and odd. Those are the three basic defensive linemen really sets they can get into, or schemes. And if you guys don't know that, you guys need to definitely start understanding fronts, because fronts help with run game. So there's a lot of stuff before you even pick up a football and throw it that, like, I think quarterbacks generally need to understand so that, they can function in a really, really high pace, I would say, intelligent offense. That a lot of kids think, if I just grab a ball and throw really well, I'm going to be a good quarterback. And to me, maybe in middle school and high school that works, because you run a very simple system. You got better athletes. When you get to college and it's very complex on offense and defense, and you got a lot of things. And there's a terminology that I use called KYP, which means know your personnel, which is another one that I'm very, very big on, is saying, hey, if I have a 6'4" slug, like I'll be honest with you, if I had a Daryl Langham at X, I'm throwing more jump balls, I'm throwing more back shoulders. I don't want Daryl Langham, blazing down the field trying to track a football. I want Daryl Langham to use his 6'5", 6'6" body to go up and basically post a guy. But now, if I have a Jeff Thomas or Braxton Berrios or Amon Richards, I'm letting it ride. Like, Amon's a little different because Amon can jump, and so can Braxton. Like, those guys can jump, obviously, but they're burners. They're guys that, you want them to stretch the field. You want those guys, when they run goes, you want to throw it, 10, 15 yards in front of them and let them put their head down and track it down. And so, to me, knowing your personnel, knowing who is burners, who's not, same thing when you go to the camp series. You guys got the Alabama or the Georgia, you're not going to know all those receivers. But if you can understand, hey, this guy's bigger, a little slower, this guy's a little faster, and he likes to get across the field, to me, those are parts of the quarterback IQ part that, to me, if you're not taught that, like, you need to get a new quarterback coach, because those are the part that a lot of people going into college really, really don't understand. And to me, it's what honestly keeps a lot of freshmen and sophomores from actually playing that are really good throwers. So next, we're going to talk about quarterback changes that I think are the best going into this season. Number one is DJ. DJ went from Clemson to Oregon State. I think with the offense that they're going to run, it'll really, really fit him. I think that there's a lot that they're going to ask from him, but I think that he has the ability to handle it. I am very interested in his throwing mechanics. I know it was something that he really struggled with whenever he was at Clemson, so I hope that's something that, at Oregon State they've been able to clean up. But you talk about size, ability, leadership, I think DJ has a lot of qualities that Oregon State is looking for in a quarterback. Next, and this is probably probably one of my favorite quarterbacks, to be honest with you. I really like Sam Hartman. When you guys go back and watch him at Wake Forest, the guy was pretty sure he leads the ACC in touchdowns. You watch him; he's hard. He runs the ball. He does a lot of stuff that to me is stuff that generally quarterbacks don't ask to do, especially talking about him basically behind the offensive line on the inside via read, and he's pulling it, running into linebackers and stuff. So the guy's tough. Obviously, I can throw touchdowns. And I think, from the transition of Wake Forest, Notre Dame's going to have 4 and 5 stars all around this guy. They're going to have really good offensive linemen. They're going to have a good run game and defense. So I really, really, really like Sam Hartman. I would say out of all of these, this is probably my favorite one because I think that this guy, because we're moving from Wake Forest, Notre Dame actually has a chance to win the Heisman and potentially even take Notre Dame, into the Final Four or at least get them close to the playoffs. So I really like Sam Hartman at Notre Dame. I think there's a lot of hope for the Fighting Irish as long as Sam Hartman stays healthy all year. The last one, I know this one's kind of weird, and I think that, sometimes when you're in just a weird quarterback position, obviously they had Sam Hartman come in, so that they really like this guy, and this guy can throw a lot of touchdowns. Again, he's ACC, touchdown leader. Him moving to Alabama to me is really good. Alabama obviously has some young quarterbacks. They have quarterbacks that have no experience. Tyler has some experience. I think that there are some, bumps in the road that he's gonna have to overcome, with multiple 4 and 5 stars on that quarterback roster. But I think that he's someone that, needed that offensive change, needed something to where like they believe in him. Obviously with them recruiting him from the portal, they obviously have some faith in Tyler. And I think, when Sam came to Notre Dame, it was kind of Sam's job to lose. And I think Tyler kind of felt that. Obviously, this guy's a competitor. I think he has a lot of arm talent, but I am very interested to see, can he transition into the SEC and be a dominant force for Alabama. Next, I got to talk Miami ball. So we're going to go into the season. We're about to hit June here in pretty much one day. So happy summer to everyone that's in summer. I know for some of you guys already started summer, but to me, we're going to go into what a good season looks like for Miami. I know people's like, oh, we need to win the ACC. Oh, we need to do this or that. And to me, 7-5, 8-4, good season. 7-5, depending on who we lose to and how. 8-4, I'm happy. I'm walking out head held high, like I'm good. And the biggest thing is that I don't care about the 4 or 5 losses, to be honest with you. Like, losses happen. We are in a rebuilding stage. We are not in Alabama, Georgia, or Ohio State. Like, that's not us. And so I think the more that we realize that and that we say, hey, we got to be patient and we got to give Mario time. And I mean, you guys can see it. You guys see the June visits. There's 4 and 5 stars everywhere that's coming down all month. And so, stop caring so much about the losses. Like, yeah, it happens. I think it's really point number 2. I just want the losses to be close. Keep every game close. To me, I think that's the biggest one. Like, Florida State beats us by a field goal. Yeah, I'm gonna be pissed, but I'm gonna be like, you know what? That was a good team. We fought hard. We got some young talent. That's a good team. We fought hard. We have some young talent, and we're gonna get better. And so I think there's gonna be games that we lose that, just from an experience standpoint, and maybe they have a couple players that are better than us. It's going to happen. But I also want to see these guys fight. I want to see it be 4 quarters. One team that I really like watching last year were the Detroit Lions. Like, when you play Detroit, you might have beat them. But I promise you, walking out of that stadium or them walking out of your stadium, you're going to be pissed. You're going to be bruised. You're going to be banged up. And that's really, really what I want the attitude of this Miami team is saying, hey, man, we're young. We're fast. We're going to play hard. We might not win every game, but I promise you this, if you give us a chance, we are going to beat you, and you better play sound football. To me, I think that's the kind of football Miami needs to get back to. And I think that's a lot of stuff that Mario's pushing is, focus on us. Let's take care of our issues, and a lot of things will take care of themselves. And the last one is just make the easy games easy. When we're playing like the Georgia Techs and we're playing Temple and we're playing those teams, like, don't make it hard. Go in there, beat their brains in, and then leave. That's it. Like, to me, that's how like the good Miami teams did, was the easy games they kept easy, the hard ones they kept close. They fought and they fought, and they did everything they had to do to keep games close. And there was multiple games when I played that was like, hey man, it's mentally draining. I know for the fans it's mentally draining, but it's draining for us too. You know what I mean? Like, what team can focus for all 4 quarters and say, hey man, let's get this one drive, let's get this one spark. Like, football is very much a momentum game. And so the team that checks out the fastest is usually the team that loses. And so I think Mario will have these guys in great shape. I think the freshman class is going to do an unreal job of, setting the standard high. And I know, like, you're gonna have guys like TVD, Cameron Kitchens that set the standard. But the good news is you have this freshman class that not only is set a standard with them, but I know some of the guys are setting standards higher than what Cam and some of these guys have. I'm not saying that Cam's not working hard because I think Cam is by far the hardest worker on the team. But there's obviously, even when kids came in, hey, this is a standard. You show up early. You do this. You make sure that you have everything dressed and ready for practice. Like that was some of the basic standards that we have. But you hear a lot of guys like Ray McLeod, hey, I get catches every day. That's his standard. Hey, I do this every day. That's maybe it's getting a little extra in the weight room. So I think when you add a combination of Mario standard, the talent that we have when you add Mario standard, the talent we have in some of the upperclassmen, and a lot of the talent we have in the underclassmen that's setting a high standard, I think there's going to be games that we lose, obviously, but I just want to be super competitive, and I don't want any like blowout losses, and hopefully it doesn't happen. If it does, we'll be fine. But yeah, I just think a good season for Miami is just stop caring about the losses, Miami fans. They're going to happen. We're going to lose 1 or 2 games. It's inevitable. Secondly, for the biggest thing is keeping the game close. And lastly is like when we have an easy game, like the first couple, let's blow them out. Let's get the young guys in. Let's get them a lot of experience. And I think to me, if we can accomplish those three things, this would be a very, very good season for the Miami Hurricanes. So next, I want to go into my top 10 plays, and the first two kind of scratch them out just because I really didn't get to witness those, but the rest I definitely saw. So Frank Gore overtime touchdown, FSU is number 3. Loved that. To me, anytime we beat FSU, especially in overtime, got to have it in there. Number 4, this was one of the most electric punt returns. Like the guy literally just darted down the middle and scored, was Devin Hester touchdown versus Louisville, fourth quarter. Love that play. Louisville was a very good team, and so were we. So I had to put my dog in there. Daryl Langham touchdown, Florida State, fourth quarter, to break the 7-game losing streak. Shout out to my dog Daryl, man. Appreciate you for catching that one, putting us both in the memories of all the Miami fans. But yeah, I got to have Daryl Langham in my top 5. Number 6, just because the catch was unreal. It was a very tight game, and it was one of our last years in the Big East. Was Ken Winslow, one-handed catch versus West Virginia right down the middle to keep the drive alive. Love that play. I think that is the iconic, tight end U kind of play. And so shout out to Keelan Winslow for having that iconic catch. Number 7, got Frank Gore here again. He had the fourth quarter touchdown to beat Florida State. I messed this one up. Number 7 is wrong. I do want to apologize. The number 7 to me is the fourth quarter touchdown versus Florida. I have Florida State in there. But when Frank Gore scored that fourth quarter touchdown versus Florida to put us up, to me, I think that was, a very iconic. Obviously, we know, the Miami-Florida rivalry, and that was just huge by Frank Gore to, put us on top. Number 8, for everyone that was there, I know people have their controversies on this because we were blowing them out. But if you were there, man, the Trajan Bandy pick 6 was the loudest. And I've been to Florida State. I've been to Auburn. I've been to Alabama. I've been to Ole Miss. Like, I've been to a lot of stadiums. My ears almost busted. Like I had a lady that literally said that her books and stuff were vibrating off the desk because that's how loud we were. So to me, I want to add Trajan Bandy in there just because I still get chills when I think about how electric the crowd was, how just iconic that game was. Just for me personally, I have to put Trajan Bandy's pick 6 in there just because I've never heard the crowd erupt that loud before. Number 9, this was another pick 6. Ed Reed, and Ed Reed didn't pick it. Someone else picked it, but Ed Reed basically stole it from him and ran down the field and scored versus Boston College. So I really love this play just because you see the teamwork, the camaraderie, between the guys saying, hey, I got the pick, you take the touchdown. And last is Dorsey to Shockey touchdown win versus Florida. Dorsey to Shockey touchdown win versus Florida State in 2000. I think this was huge. This was one of the most, this team in really 2001 was the best team to ever be assembled by Miami. So to me, these are my top 10 plays. Obviously, I think there's some plays that can be interchanged, and a lot of people have, the return. Some people have, Tommy Streeter's touchdown versus Ohio State. So there's some plays that, to me could get changed. When you talk about iconic figures, iconic games, iconic teams, to me, these are the top 10 Miami moments. So let me know what you guys think. I'm very interested to see if you guys agree or disagree with me. Next, and this was from the OBB boys, so shout out to you guys. I heard your podcast, and you guys talked about some pipelines, and I really like that. I think that there are some schools in the past that definitely did not associate themselves with Miami, but I think bringing back the Mario regime and the way that he's recruiting, I think a lot of guys are finally hopping on board. And for me, the big 4 teams, and in the last one we can talk about a little bit, but to me, the first 3, y'all can't tell me nothing about them. We need IMG. we need Booker T, and we need Central. We get those three, we can recruit a lot, a lot. Most of our skill, IMG will have really good offensive linemen, and they'll have some quarterbacks. And then the last school, I mean, you can go with American Heritage. I'm not really as tapped into South Florida high school football, but I mean, when I was growing up, American Heritage was a powerhouse. I know now there's like St. Thomas Aquinas, and they've always been kind of good, or not kind of, they've always been really good. But I think that maybe number four you can interchange, with a Columbus, a American Heritage, a couple other schools, but for sure, IMG, Booker T, Miami Central need to be our three major pipeline schools, and number four can kind of fluctuate based on who's good and who's not. But I really do like that, that concept, or that aspect. I know it's something that a lot of schools in like Georgia are really connected to the University of Georgia, and they want to become those pipeline schools because it's really, really good for schools to be able to say, hey man, we have Miami here every year. They make sure to come by and talk to you guys and see you guys. So I think Mario's doing a great job of tapping back into not only the high school kids, but also the directors, the presidents, out all the aspects of the high school. And I think that if we can get back to having these at least top three as our pipeline, saying, hey man, you guys have first choice of our kids because we love you guys and our kids love you guys. To me, that's when Miami becomes exclusive. And if you guys go back and watch what Snellenberger did, that's what he did. He kept all the local talent. And to me, obviously IMG's up here where I'm kind of near Tampa, Bradenton area, but Booker T and Miami Central always have really, really good talent come out of that school every year. Now we're into our NFL. So now we're gonna get into our NFL news, and we're just gonna go over two really cool quarterback segments. And to me, I think they're pretty interesting. So number one, Rodgers talking about the Jets winning the Super Bowl. So I don't know if you guys saw, but Rodgers was at a Taylor Swift concert and he's screaming. Rodgers was at a Taylor Swift concert and he screamed, "Jets win the Super Bowl." And to me, I think that's really, really big. My mom always told me you speak it into existence. And I love that fact. I love the fact that he's being positive. That is his mindset. To me, I think that if you're going to win a championship, that has to be your mindset, point blank, period. Lastly, mentality is everything. And I'll kind of take this back into football. I have a lot of young kids that, I'll coach a guy and say, hey man, like this is what you're doing wrong. Next guy comes up, he does it wrong. Next guy comes up, he does it wrong. And so I'll literally stop the drill. I make all of them back up, and I make all of them do mental reps and also physical reps too. So I'll say, hey, whatever I told your correction is, whether it's, hey, your weight is going on your back foot, hey, keep your left hand up. I make all of them do mental reps, one. And then secondly, I make them do a physical rep with no ball. The main reason is because a lot of people, they don't understand how powerful the mind is, how powerful, your mind controls your body. And so a lot of times, a lot of young kids, they don't get the mental reps. When they have someone else going through a drill or doing a rep or, maybe going through a play, like they're very much checked out. To me, it's very important for a quarterback because especially if you're a backup or a third string, like you're not going to get all the reps. But how you can get better is you can mentally go through every process, every route, every step that starter's going through. And so to me, I love the mentality, of Aaron Rodgers speaking, the Jets win the Super Bowl into existence. Now, will it happen? I don't know. But at least the mindset, the positivity, the way that he's trying to lead, I think is the right way, especially in New York. So lastly, what we're going to go over is trouble in Vegas. Is Brady going to go there? I don't know. I don't know if Brady goes there. I know there's some trouble with Jimmy G, his foot. He didn't pass his physical. So I think there could be some small rifts there, but I'm very interested to see what happens, with this whole situation. I don't think Brady's going to make it back. I think that he's kind of done. I don't know if Vegas would be right for him, but it could be interesting. I think he's someone that could be a definitely dark horse for the Las Vegas Raiders. Next is who else do they have? Like, I don't know. I know they had Jarrett Stidham from Auburn at one point. I don't know if they traded him or if they kept him. I know that he played, when Derek Carr was, kind of in and out because they wanted to see what Stidham could do. And obviously it wasn't enough as they, got Jimmy Garoppolo. So very interesting. I think two guys they can go after. One, I think Teddy Bridgewater would be a very, very interesting one. And also Jameis Winston. I think Jameis is a guy that has played a lot of games that gives him a year to maybe, find their next year starter or, draft a starter that they think is going to be, really, really good. Maybe they try to tank and get a Caleb Williams or a Drake May or Michael Penix Jr. There's a lot of good quarterbacks coming out this next couple of years. So I think that Vegas could be in trouble this year, but in the future, they could set themselves up for a really, really good situation. But I also think that they have to have a decent year. They have a lot of talents, a lot of qualities. I know they even lost Darren Waller to New York Giants. So they're struggling in some spots. And so, obviously having Jimmy Garoppolo go down, or not really go down, but not be able to clear his physical, to me really hurts, the Las Vegas Raiders. So the last section that we're going to go through, and really, really good friend of mine just won this. And I just want to say congrats to Alex Donne, man. I will post a screenshot on Twitter. I promise you guys, I did not rig this. I put it on a wheel. I click shuffle 2 or 3 times. I hit spin, and Alex Donne has won this Miami hat. So it has a whole bunch of signatures from last year's team that I think you'll like. Alex, I will be down there next weekend, so I can either hand it to you personally next weekend. We can take a picture, which is what I think would be cool. Also, I haven't seen you in a while, so I think it'd be nice. Or I can go ahead and ship it down there to you. I don't know if you're going to be, out of town or something next weekend, but if you are, let me know and I'll ship it. If not, I would love to, catch up, give you the hat because you are the first prize winner of the Miami Millionaires Club, or you are the first prize winner of the Malik Rosier Show. So congrats to Alex Donne. For the people that do not follow Alex Donne, you definitely should. Great guy, great personality. Someone that when I got into the radio, really, really helped me understand like what to say, what not to say, how to act, how to keep my composure. So tons of respect to Alex Donne. He's always been, someone that has been great to me and always has been super respectful. So I can't think of anyone that is more deserving of winning, at least the Malik Rosier first YouTube prize than Alex Donne. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I will be back in a couple of days. Can't wait to see you guys again.